It was a quiet afternoon when I encountered her. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the winding path that cut through the dense forest near my cabin. I had taken this walk 100 times before, just a simple way to clear my head away from the noise of the world. The sound of leaves crunching underfoot and the occasional bird call was all I needed to find peace. But that afternoon, something was different. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light. Between the trees, I saw a figure, a woman, standing perfectly still. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, but when I looked again, she was still there. She was tall, slender, with skin that seemed to shimmer in the dimming sunlight, almost as though it were made of silver. Her hair was long, flowing, and dark like liquid night, and her eyes, they weren't human. They glowed faintly, a soft shade of blue, almost luminescent, like the moon reflected on water. I stopped in my tracks, heart pounding in my chest. Something about her felt out of place, like I was seeing a dream unravel in front of me. She didn't seem to notice me at first. She stood motionless, staring at the forest around her. After a few moments, I summoned the courage to speak. "Are you lost?" I asked, my voice sounding small in the quiet of the forest. Her head turned slowly toward me, and when she met my gaze, I felt a chill run down my spine. Her eyes weren't hostile, but they seemed to peer into something deep within me, as if she could see right through to the core of my being. "I am not lost," she said, her voice soft but steady. It was like a melody, alien and familiar all at once. "I'm looking for something." "Looking for something?" I repeated, not sure if I had heard her right. "What are you looking for?" She tilted her head slightly, as though considering the question. "I am searching for an artifact, something that belongs to my people. I believe it is hidden here in this forest." I felt my breath catch in my throat. The way she spoke made it clear that she wasn't from anywhere I knew. But before I could ask more, she spoke again, her eyes distant, almost lost in thought. "My people are scattered across the stars, and this artifact is the key to finding us. It was lost many cycles ago, and I have followed its trail here, to this place." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was tinged with sorrow. "I thought I would never find it, but I am drawn to this forest." I stood there, unsure of what to say. "You're an alien?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, I am called Lyra, from a world far beyond your own." I felt my mind racing. Aliens? Artifacts? Was I dreaming? I looked at her again, and this time I noticed something in her posture, an intense focus, like she was locked onto something in the distance, yet also aware of everything around her. "How can I help?" I asked before I could stop myself. Lyra turned her gaze back to me, her glowing eyes softening, though I could sense her hesitation. "You need not help. I will find it alone." But her words didn't match the way she looked at me, like she was weighing something in her mind. "Perhaps you can help me," she said, almost as if testing the idea. "This place holds secrets that I do not understand. There are clues, hidden patterns, and energies that may guide me. You may sense them." I had no idea what she meant, but something deep inside me stirred. I didn't know why, but I had the strange feeling that this wasn't just a random encounter. I felt like I was being called to something greater. "I'll try," I said, my voice more confident than I felt. Lyra smiled, a faint curve of her lips that seemed to make her eyes shine even brighter. "Thank you." We walked together side by side through the forest. The air was thick with the scent of pine and moss, but there was an unusual stillness to the place now. No birds, no animals, just the soft whisper of the wind through the trees. As we moved deeper into the woods, Lyra occasionally paused, her eyes scanning the surroundings like she was deciphering hidden messages in the forest itself. I followed her lead, though I had no idea what she was looking for. Every so often, She would touch a tree or a rock, and her fingers would glow with faint light, leaving traces of blue energy behind. I asked her about it, but she only said, "These are remnants of the artifact's presence. It left its mark here long ago." We finally reached the base of a towering, ancient oak tree, its gnarled roots twisting like a labyrinth. Lyra stopped and turned to me, her gaze intense. "This is where it lies," she said. Her voice carried an urgency that hadn't been there before. "How can you be sure?" I asked, stepping closer to the tree. She glanced at me, then at the tree. "I can feel it. Its energy is here. I just need to find it." She knelt, placing her palm against the bark of the tree. Her eyes closed, and for a moment, everything was still. Then, her body tensed as if the very ground beneath us was vibrating. A pulse of energy shot through the tree, and before my eyes, a section of the bark split open, revealing a glowing, crystalline object embedded within. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. At last, she whispered. The crystal hummed softly, its blue light radiating through the darkening forest. Lyra reached out with both hands and carefully lifted the artifact. Her face was a mixture of relief and sorrow, as though she was holding a piece of her lost world. "This artifact," she explained quietly, "was once the heart of my people. It connects us to the stars, to our home. Without it, we were lost." I watched her carefully, unsure of what to say. There was something undeniably otherworldly about this moment, something that felt timeless. "I'm glad you found it," I finally said, though I wasn't sure what it meant for me. Lyra turned to face me, her glowing eyes warm for the first time. "And so am I." She stood, holding the crystal in her hands. Then, after a long silence, she turned toward the path leading out of the forest. "I must go," she said, her voice carrying an underlying sadness. "Thank you for your help. You have shown me kindness when I had none left." I nodded, but as I watched her walk away, a sense of loss settled over me. I knew this wasn't the end of our story, but I also knew that no matter how much I wanted to understand it all, Lyra's world, her path, was one I could never fully walk. As she disappeared into the forest, I stood alone, with only the memory of the encounter and the strange, inexplicable feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger.